Here we're standing on the south side of the old city of Jerusalem, and we're looking towards the old wall of 500 years ago built by Suleiman the Turk. There's the Golden Dome. We're on the southern side of the city. Now we're looking a little bit to the right, and I'm going to show you the Mount of Olives. Right there you'll see the pinnacle of the Church of Ascension, the Russian Orthodox Church. The Church of Ascension, where Jesus went to heaven. And then of course we're coming back, and then we'll see the Kidron Valley ahead of us. The Kidron Valley, and right in the end there is Gethsemane, that church that's coming out there right now. There's Kidron Valley. Turning a little bit again to the left, and we'll see of course now again the Golden Dome where Abram offered Isaac, and of course then again we're going to see the new city on the left side, and of course Mount Zion. You'll see Mount Zion up there. There's Mount Zion, and this is the overview that we show folks when they come to Jerusalem the first time. Let's just look at what the city of David, the size it was 3,000 years ago. You see that little piece of property right there? Just that section I'm zooming into now, that is the city of David. We'll see it this afternoon a bit closer. Now behind this building would have been the promenade in a short while that we've been looking at. Now we're looking again here from the west side towards the city of Jerusalem. Now in the time of Jesus, we can hear the church bells ringing. Time of Jesus, that toll road would have been part of the city wall. Here we see Mount Zion in front of us, where the upper room is. And of course there's the city wall on the west side, and there is of course Jaffa Gate. Then we go a little bit to the left, and we see a very interesting phenomena. Here's a windmill that was built here by Lord Montefiore in 1860, around about that time. And we go a little bit now looking towards the west, looking all the way around, looking all the way up here, and here we see the Scottish Church of Lord General Allenby. When he came from Church of Scotland, he laid the cornerstone here when they took the city back. And here's the group that's been with us today, and this is a complete panorama standing here. And here we see a valley that we couldn't see from the promenade, and that is the Hinnom Valley, and there in the distance where Judas must have hung himself, the blood ground we see here. Looking again towards the east, there in the distance is the mountains of Moab, the country of Jordan. We're standing looking at the city wall on the west side. We saw it from the mountain. There's where the Holy Sepulchre is, the traditional place of the church where Jesus was crucified. And this wall built by Suleiman the Great 500 years ago. We see the King David Hotel, very famous hotel, here on the west side of Jerusalem. And there we see again the windmill. And then of course there we see the Church of Scotland again there on our left. And this is looking towards the south side in the Hinnom Valley of Jerusalem. The Zion Gate, now this is the gate where in 1948 they lost the city to the Jordanians that drove them back, and here we see all the bullet holes and things here at Zion Gate. Our group here at the upper room where the Last Supper was inside this little building is an old Crusader church built in the style of the Byzantiums, and this will be the upper room, or the place where the upper room was. And here we are inside the building. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. See the Hurva synagogue here by the Cardo, which is the place that was in the Byzantium time where they had the walkway all the way from Zion Gate in the south to Damascus Gate in the north. Here's a map at Madaba that they found of what the city looked like in the time of the Byzantines. The map of Madaba. See the rest of the Cardo. Here's some of the original paving that's left of 2,000 years ago in the time of the Byzantians. And now we see the Cardo. Everybody is singing. And here's a beautiful piece of artwork of what the city could have looked like 1,700 years ago. There's this lovely painting of the Cardo 1,700 years ago. Upmarket area of shopping here in the Jewish quarter. A nice upmarket area here. Still on the Cardo, but this is now in the Jewish quarter. The flag of Jerusalem with the Jerusalem badge. See the wall of Nehemiah, and it was even from the time of King Hezekiah. There we see it today, city wall, and this red dotted line was the one of 2,500 years ago. But right in front of us is the foundation of the wall that Nehemiah came and rebuilt 2,500 years ago. And look at the original height of it. It was 8 meters high, right there. See up there? That's how high the original wall was. The wall of Nehemiah 2,500 years ago. The guy's busy with the shawarma. The people are eating their lunch here. That is chicken or turkey meat that he's got there with all the salads, and they put it inside of a pita and a bread. Looking at the Dome of the Rock, and there's the Western Wall in front of us. It's all that's left of the Temple of Herod the Great. The foundation stones here of where the temple used to stand on this square box that he built here. Ahead of us, of course. Okay, here's just a repeat of again the golden dome in the ahead of us where Abraham offered Isaac. There's the Western Wall ahead of us, and then here we have again the Crusader Church of 1,000 years ago, and then behind it is the Mount of Olives. We are at the Western Wall. In Hebrew they call it the Kotel, the most holiest place in Judaism. It's all that's left of the wall of Herod the Great's temple of 2,000 years ago. All the men praying, and they're putting their prayer requests in the wall. Trust in the Lord and don't despair. He is a friend so true. No matter what your troubles are, Jesus will see you through. Here we're in the synagogue underneath the Western Wall. All our Jewish friends are praying in the beautiful Torah here. Beautiful, where the Torah scrolls are kept here underneath by the Western Wall, the Kotel. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the dedication. Now we've left the Western Wall, and now we're going to be walking out at Dung Gate. This is the gate here on the south side, and of course this is only 500 years old. The original gate was much further down, and we're going to look at that now at the city of David. Looking at the promenade there in the distance, and this is the little tar road that comes up next to the city of David. There in the distance is where you stood and you look towards the city of David, and this is the tar road, the Trifinium Valley here on its right side, left side. Now we're going towards Solomon's entrance to his temple. Here we're seeing the entrance to the temple of Solomon, and later of course the temple in the time of Herod. There's the pinnacle of the temple, and of course there is the Mount of Olives on our right hand side. And soon we'll be crossing over here to see the city of David. Here we are looking again now. The entrance into Solomon's temple from the city of David, and there is the Crusader church of 2,000 years later after King David. Full view of the promenade. There's the promenade in the distance. Everybody is standing there and looking towards the city of David. And here we're looking at the Kidron Valley, and on our right hand side we saw where the city of David was many years ago, 3,000 years ago. And where the kings lived until Nebuchadnezzar took them away, and later they came back and rebuilt the city wall. So here's the Kidron Valley and the city of David. The pinnacle of the temple, it was much higher in the time of Jesus. This is where the devil took Jesus and said, jump down from here, because it is written, he will send his angels to charge over you, keep your foot that you won't stumble. He said, it is said, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. The pinnacle of the temple. The eastern gate now. This is the closed gate on the eastern side of Jerusalem, and then we look across into the north. Now he's coming over, and now we're looking down here in the Kidron Valley, and ahead of us we see this beautiful facade of the church at Gethsemane, the Church of All Nations at Gethsemane. And then in the backdrop is the Mount of Olives, and behind that is a Russian Orthodox church at Gethsemane, and then we have the Teardrop Church of Mary Magdalene, where Jesus wept over Jerusalem. Oh Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I wanted to gather you together as a hen her chicks. That's all the graves on the Mount of Olives. Absalom's grave, there they say is Absalom's grave, actually from the Greek time. And here we are in the Kidron Valley. We're going to walk here in the footsteps of Jesus, the same way that when he was captured in Gethsemane. I'm just going to come back again, zoom up here again. So just beyond us there is Gethsemane, and that's where Judas took them captive and then took him to Caiaphas' house through the Kidron Valley. Here's some other graves as well. Here we are walking on part of the Via Dolorosa. We're coming from Gethsemane, and this is the road Jesus would have walked when they took him captive that evening before they brought him to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. And there in the distance, of course, we see where the promenade is and the city of David on the Via Dolorosa. Now here's some goats enjoying the food here after the winter rain. Beautiful. And they'll say in Beta Avon, bon appetit, goats. Standing on the Mount of Olives to a beautiful Israeli flag. Over the city now, the sun setting there in the west. There's the Golden Dome, and there is the city from the Mount of Olives in the east, looking towards the west. Beautiful sun setting there, looking again towards the left, and there we see the promenade which we were this morning. You'll be entering a lovely little garden here on the Mount of Olives, which is a beautiful setting for us, where we do our prayers and identify with Jesus in Gethsemane. Not my will, thy will be done.
Going to a time of prayer, the part of Matthew Luke and John. Matthew and Mark is very similar, but if we take Matthew and we take Luke and John, we're going to just see what the totality of the story is. Matthew chapter 26 is the first part that we're going to be starting at, from verse 36 to 46.
Standing at the Garden of Gethsemane, looking towards the eastern gate on the Mount of Olives. Here we are at the house of Caiaphas. We see a mosaic at the church of Jesus that was here in the dungeon, in the prison, after he was condemned by the Sanhedrin. This is also the place, of course, where Peter denied the Lord and said, I don't know him. And there's a lovely artwork that says, I don't know this man. At the house of Caiaphas. The ancient steps of 2,000 years ago. And so if we have to ask ourselves, is it possible that Jesus could have walked on this? And this is the most definite places still left after the city was destroyed so many times. And after 2,000 years, the steps where Jesus most definitely would have walked on his way to Caiaphas' house. And the church is now built over this place. And there's the forgiveness, where Peter says, I love you, Lord. Looking at Golgotha, hier's Golgotha, and daar agter, there at the back, we see the old quarry where they used to stone people, and this was the highway all the way to Damascus 2,000 years ago. On the Via Dolorosa, on the Via Dolorosa, on the Via Dolorosa, on the Via Dolorosa, on the Via Dolorosa. Dankie julle. We'll be at Damascus Gate. And on the Via Dolorosa, Jesus would have carried his cross out here by Damascus Gate, all the way to Golgotha. This is what it looked like 100 years ago, a photograph of Calvary 100 years ago. Today, the Calvary of today, we showed that a short while ago where the crosses must have stood, and this is Skull Hill, the road to Damascus where they used to crucify people next to the highway. In the garden was the tomb where they buried Jesus, and here we see the opening of an empty tomb. He is not here, for he is risen. Jesus Christ declared with power to be the Son of God by the resurrection from the dead. And here we see the grave, the empty tomb at Golgotha.
On Machan Yehuda, the fresh vegetable and fruit market in Jerusalem. The fresh fruit and vegetable market in Jerusalem. Some grapes, early grapes. The open street, and there's also a closed street of the market.
Train that we've been traveling on. The light rail in Jerusalem. The view of the Dead Sea. This is where everybody had their swim there by the hotels, in the area where Sodom and Gomorrah was. Here we see the salt pans where they mine the minerals from the Dead Sea, and those are the mountains of Moab, later becoming the mountains of Edom, all the way south to Eilat. The Dead Sea. By the graf van Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah. Abram, everywhere else, there's not bullets going off, it's just firecrackers, they're celebrating. And please wave people for Abram. Shalom, shalom. Die groepie lekker bietjie koffie hier by Joppe. Die mooi Bybelstories van Cornelius en waar Petrus die laken gesien het. Hier by Joppe. En daar sien ons Tel Aviv in die verte. Ons kyk al die pad noord op die kusvlakte daar, pad na Caesarea af. En ons praat nog 'n bietjie harder, ons het altyd geraad. En ek I'm serious in English. Okay, now we're looking at Joppa. Looking to the north there towards Caesarea, and here the group is just enjoying the coffee of the city of Tel Aviv in the background and the Tel of Joppa.
Okay, our journey to the north usually starts from Jerusalem, which is over here, and then we travel to the west to the sea, Mediterranean Sea, which is Tel Aviv. From Tel Aviv we turn north and we go past Netanya and we stop over in Caesarea and continue all the way up to Haifa, which is the largest harbor city in Israel. Then from here we go inland towards Nazareth, where Jesus grew up, and then we continue to the Sea of Galilee and we stay over in Tiberias. The next day we would just go do things around the sea and then come down next to the Jordan River all the way towards Jericho, and then that will bring us back to Jerusalem. That is our journey for 2 days through the land of the Bible.
Looking to the north, there's the largest fire plant in Israel at Caesarea. Coal from South Africa. Coal power plant for electricity. And here we are at Caesarea. This is where the harbor was in the time of Herod the Great, the artificial harbor. And this is the aqueduct that brought the water to the city, about 30 kilometers long, 20 miles all the way from Mount Carmel. Fountains that brought water to Caesarea, here at the Mediterranean, looking west, all the way back again to where we see the harbor conveyor belts to the power plant. Looking over the city of Haifa, all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, where they have their big harbor city. In ancient times, the old port city of Akku, Ptolemais, would have been right there. And here we look at the Jezreel Valley, looking to the north, all the way to Lebanon. From Mount Carmel, where Elijah had the contest with the Baal priest, and the people shouted, "The Lord." In Nazareth, we're driving down the main street, and soon we're going to see the Church of the Annunciation. Traditionally where Mary's house was, and where the angel appeared to her and said that you're going to have a child. And she said, "Let it be according to your word." And here's the beautiful Church of the Annunciation here in Jerusalem. Not in Jerusalem, sorry, in Nazareth. In Nazareth. Here we're looking at the Mount of Transfiguration, Mount Tabor. There we see a light of a church on top of the mountain. And Jesus took his disciples on top of the mountain. Mark chapter 9, I do believe, and it said he was changed before them into a supernatural being, shining with an incredible light. The beautiful Sea of Galilee. There's the road that they took all the way up to Nazareth. The Sea of Galilee to the south. There's the city of Tiberias. And here we're going all the way to see the Sea of Galilee, all the way to the south where Jordan River flows out onto the south side. The beautiful Mount of Beatitudes. The Beatitudes, please.
Mount of Beatitudes, where Jesus spoke these wonderful words saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, they shall be filled. Blessed are those who are meek, they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who are pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, theirs is the kingdom of heaven."
Here we at the little village of Capernaum, Kefarnachum. It means Kefar village, and now the village of Naam. And these mensen. Here's some of how they lived in those days. A little village here, quite large. And here's the synagogue there on the western side. And it's built on the original foundation of the old one, which Jesus came and ministered in. But here we can see an idea of the basalt stone, possibly covered with stone as well. Some historians say that it possibly was only leaves and palm trees on the top. But it's such a hot area, so I do believe they must have had some stones on top, tiles for the roofs. Also of this basalt stone that we see here, the volcanic rock. Congregation is on their way, and we're going to be sharing some wonderful scriptures here from the book of Mark. Jesus calling the disciples, the demoniac man inside of the synagogue, the leper that was cleansed, and then the man through the roof whose sins were forgiven, and then of course also about Jairus and about the woman with the issue of blood. Here's an olive press, a Gethsemane, and there we see it, lovely. And the other bigger one there, and then there it says olive press. And here's just some of the ruins of the synagogue. We see all the special carvings that tell us it was Jewish. There we see some grapes, and soon we'll see a Star of David that comes out here. All that's left over of the synagogue here of 2,000 years ago. Let's just look at the Star of David to show you that was already an emblem for the Jewish people long ago. Here we have the lovely boats on the Sea of Galilee. And they take the people out on a wonderful experience. The boats on the sea.
Okay, we're looking down here in the country of Jordan, and Israel meets here together, and you see the Yarmouk River down there where the train bridge was blown up in the wartime. And this is also the little river where the ravens brought food to Elijah in the time of the Old Testament.
Thank you. Here's an interesting hippodrome at Beth Shan. Beth Shan is important for us. We read about it in the Old Testament, where Saul lost his life with his sons. There in the back behind the date palm trees is the mountains of Gilboa at Beth Shan. And this is for Saul and his sons lost their lives here in the battle against the Philistines. Later, of course, there was a city here called Scipiopolis, and a Roman Greek city, and this was a hippodrome where the chariots were. It was also one of the 10 cities of the Decapolis. Remember the man that Lord Jesus healed, the demoniac, and he went and witnessed the testimony. Of course, here's also a place where they persecuted Christians, and they would have thrown them to the wild animals. And we always take time here to pray for the persecuted church Commander there with a group praying for the persecuted church. At Bet Shan.
Here we see the mountains of Gilboa. This is where the story of Gideon took place, where the men had to come and drink water at the brook of Harod, and they had to fight against the Midianites. But God worked a different plan, and as they blew the shofars and broke the lanterns, the Midianites all ran away, and so there was never a battle. But the story of Gideon here by the mountains of Gilboa.
Beautiful view as we look from the south, west to the east, all the way panning over the New Jerusalem, looking towards Samuel's Mountain. Samuel's Mountain is right straight ahead of us. Right ahead of us. And then, of course, going left towards the west to Tel Aviv. So here we have the New Jerusalem from Gilo, it's a mountain here, and there we see the Mount of Olives. In fact, we can see the tower right next to that building. There's the Mount of Olives. Augusta, Mount Scopus, the Hebrew University. In Kerem, it's a traditional spot where John the Baptist was born, and we're going to be reading now out of Luke chapter 1. Thank you. Luke chapter 1.
From the introduction or from the birth of John. When Herod was king of Judea, there was a Jewish priest named Zechariah. He was a member of the priestly order of Abijah, and his wife Elizabeth, who also from the priestly line of Aaron, Zechariah and Elizabeth were righteous in God's eyes, careful to obey all the Lord's commandments and regulations. They had no children, because Elizabeth was unable to conceive, and they were both very old. One day Zechariah was serving God in the temple, for his order was on duty that week. As was the custom of the priest, he was chosen by lot to enter the sanctuary of the Lord and burn incense. House and greeted Elizabeth. At the sound of Mary's greeting, Elizabeth's child leaped within her, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. Elizabeth gave a glad cry and exclaimed to Mary, God has blessed you above all women, and your child is blessed. Why am I so honored that the mother of my Lord would visit me?
Here we are in the Judean wilderness. Now we're on the east side of the mountains of Judea. John the Baptist, we were on the west side, nice and green, but look what's happened. All the wilderness, all desert, all the way down to the city of Jericho. And here we see all the wonderful biblical story. There in the distance we see the Good Samaritan road. Right ahead. 3 stories had happened here. The story of the Good Samaritan. This is also where John the Baptist grew up. And then thirdly, it's the place where Jesus fasted and prayed for 40 days in the Judean wilderness. He poured in the oil and the wine, the kind that restoreth my soul. He found me bleeding and dying on the Jericho road. Then he poured in the oil and the wine. Once more he Samaritan road all the way to Jerusalem in Wadi Kelt, and here he goes all the way. That's how they would have walked. Jesus came up from Jericho all the way. Remember when Lazarus was sick and he had died, And Jesus waited 4 days before he went up. And this is the road. There's Jericho ahead of us, the mountains of Moab in the distance, and of course this wonderful ancient road. Really the only authentic place we can still show you of what it looked like in the time of the Bible. Here's the sycamore tree, the Willevijeboom, the sycamore tree, where Zacchaeus climbed into. He wanted to see the Master. It's not the original one, but it's one of the grandchildren of the original sycamore tree in Jericho, the story of Zacchaeus. So the ancient city of Jericho, where the children of Israel marched around 7 times, 7 days, and on the 7th day 7 times, and it all fell down. The size of Jericho, the lowest place on planet Earth, 1,200 feet below sea level, oldest inhabited city in the world. They came over, there's the northern side, they came over the east side. There in the distance we see the mountains of Moab. Let's zoom in on that. There's the mountains of Moab. And then they came across the Jordan River, also the place where Jesus was baptized. And then they crossed over. Standing here by a little stream that's in the valley of Elah. There we see the Philistines there on that side, in front of the savannah. And many of them are on the mountain on that side, on the mountain ahead of us. The sun is busy setting there in the west. But here on this side of the mountain, there's King Saul and all these guys, and David's brothers, and everybody. And here's the Israelites here. And here's a young guy by the name of David, and he's going to tell us a story of what's going to happen here today. Because there on the other side, as I said, we see this groot oak there with his big sword and everything. Yeah, and he's challenging now for 6 weeks now. For 40 days he's been shouting at the Israelites. And what were you shouting, Goliath, to the Israelites?
Bring the best that you've got.
And exactly, it's very quiet. Say it again.
Bring the best that you've got.
And it's very quiet. And then a young guy arrives and said, "Hey, wie's jy jou lelike ding en die kinders van die Here so? Tell the people what you thinking about this Goliath there."
They want me to fight Goliath. But I fight with the word of the Lord.
And so can you please then, David, just go a little bit ahead, pick up your little stones there, and just finish this oak off now. Obviously he's going to think, hy gaan nou vir hom sê, as ek nou 'n hond, jy kom met klip, what do you say?
And then pick up a few stones.
And
You think I'm a dog?
Yes.
That I get frightened by stones?
I fight
Chased
with the
away
word.
by stones?
I fight with the word of the Lord.
And so now charge you op hom af, ou Davidjie. You charge him.
Come off, charge.
You charge and go closer. Oh, that happens now because Juka Baguba. There the guy goes. Now, wapendraer, you catch him. You catch your Goliath. Okay, okay, I'll say. Now you must take that swordie now.
Sword?
Go, David, go! Go, David, go!
And now the woman, you must sing in Afrikaans. To tell David, vyf klippies op, en ek gooi die reus teen sy kop, en die vroue sing, David het oorwin!
David het oorwin!
10,000.
Now Goliath and David are good friends.
Yeah, and because of Jesus, he raised him up again.
He must walk with the head, isn't he?
Lovely bridge, the harp bridge here in Jerusalem. David's harp, this is there like the little Eiffel Tower, the landmark of Jerusalem. A lovely little bridge that crosses over here, over the intersection. The train crosses over here, but this is in the evening. They've got all the lights on here. Beautiful sight here in Jerusalem, with The harp of David. In Jerusalem. And here's all our friends looking at the harp. Shalom, shalom, Jerusalem.
Shalom.